The village of Ndlovu lay nestled in a green valley, its heart beating in rhythm with the gentle murmur of the great river Konya. For generations, the river had been the village's lifeline, watering crops, filling clay jars, and carrying the laughter of children along its shimmering banks. At the center of this harmony was Masego, the elderly keeper of the river, whose stories and rituals kept its waters flowing. His face carried the wisdom of decades, his short white curly hair glowing in the sun as he leaned on his carved wooden staff. To the people, he was more than a man, he was the living memory of the river's bond with the village. Far away from the riverbank, Bika, a wealthy merchant from the same village, gazed at the flowing water with a different hunger. Where others saw life, he saw gold. If he could control the river, he could sell its water to nearby towns and grow richer than any man in the valley. Bika's thoughts were not of harmony, but of profit. He imagined large clay jars carried by his men, moving in caravans to thirsty towns, every drop bringing him more wealth. He smiled to himself, already hearing the clink of coins. One evening, Masego stood at the river's edge, speaking softly to the water as he had done every day for decades. His voice blended with the rustling reeds, calling on the spirit of the river to bless the village once more. In the fading light, the water shimmered with a faint silver glow. Unknown to him, Bika watched from the shadows, studying Masego's ritual. The merchant's eyes narrowed as he realized that the old man held the key to the river's secrets. That night, as the moon rose high and the stars shimmered, the river spirit emerged from the mist. She was tall and graceful, with flowing black hair and a white gown that seemed to ripple like water. Her eyes, deep and ancient, glowed softly as she spoke to Masego. "Masego," she said, her voice like the sound of flowing water, "the river's gift must be guarded. Greed is near, and if the balance is broken, the river will choose silence." The next morning, Bika approached Masego with false warmth. "Old friend," he said, "you work too hard. Let me help manage the river's use. Together, we can serve the people better." But his smile did not reach his eyes. Masego, sensing the shadow in Bika's heart, shook his head. "The river belongs to all. It is not for sale." His voice was calm, but firm. Bika's jaw tightened, his plans would not be so easily accepted. By midday, the river's current slowed unnaturally, its usual hum replaced by an eerie stillness. Fish surfaced, gasping for air, and the villagers murmured in confusion. Masego stood at the bank, his weathered face tightening with worry. He could feel the pulse of the river weakening beneath the surface. Bika watched from the opposite side, a smirk curling at the edge of his lips. His water storage pits were already full. That evening, the elders of Ndlovu gathered in the meeting hut, their voices tense. The flicker of oil lamps cast long shadows on their solemn faces. Masego spoke first, his voice heavy. "The river is dying. This is no ordinary drought, it has been tampered with." A younger elder asked quietly, "And who among us would dare to wound the river?" All eyes shifted toward the empty seat where Bika should have been. The next morning, Masego confronted Bika at his warehouse. "You have taken more than your share, Bika. The river cannot feed greed." Bika crossed his arms, feigning innocence. "I have only prepared for my household, nothing more." His gold bracelet glinted in the sunlight. "Your household is not the only one that drinks from the river," Masego replied, his tone like stone. That night, Masego returned alone to the riverbank. Under the moonlight, mist curled above the water, and the river spirit appeared. Her voice was both music and thunder. "The river is wounded, Masego. If the greed is not ended, the water will leave entirely." Masego bowed deeply. "Tell me how to save her." The river spirit's eyes glimmered. "Return what was stolen. Let every drop find its way home. But if they refuse, Masego asked quietly, but if they refuse? Masego asked quietly. Then the river will choose her own path and never return, she warned before vanishing into the mist. Masego stood by the now cracked riverbed, his staff digging into the dust as he called upon the river spirit. The air grew cold, and a swirling mist rose from the ground. Suddenly, she appeared, her glowing form shimmering with anger. Her voice was like rushing water, trembling with fury. You have allowed greed to choke my lifeblood. Those who take more than they need will know my curse. The wind howled as her gown swayed violently in the invisible current. When word reached Beaker of the river spirit's appearance, he laughed in scorn. Curses are for children's tales, he told his men, striding proudly through the dusty streets. His robe still shimmered in the sunlight, though the land around him had begun to wither. Villagers stared at him in silence, their eyes hollow with thirst, but Beaker ignored them. In his mind, power came from possession, not blessings. That night, the river spirit came again, not to Masego, but to the dreams of every villager. She stood in their visions, glowing like moonlight on water, warning them of a darkness that would sweep through Ndlovu if the hoarded water was not returned. Children awoke screaming, elders whispered prayers, and mothers clutched their infants close. The air seemed heavier, as though the land itself was holding its breath. Masego summoned the people to the old meeting tree. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried a deep sadness. We are on the edge of ruin. Beaker must return what he has taken, or the river will be lost forever. The villagers murmured in agreement, but fear held them back. No one dared challenge Beaker openly, his men were strong, and his temper was sharp as a knife. At dawn, Masego walked to Beaker's massive storehouse. Its walls were high, built from thick mud bricks, and guarded by his 4 loyal men. The smell of stored water hung in the air, cool and mocking. Beaker emerged, his robe bright against the parched earth. Old man, he sneered, you come to beg. The river belongs to those clever enough to keep it. Beaker stood alone on the dry riverbed, his deep blue robe now dusty and torn, his once proud gold bracelet tarnished. His sharp eyes darted around desperately, searching for any sign of the river spirit. The 4 strong men who once carried water for him were gone, scattered to find their own survival. Beaker's thirst burned in his throat, but the riverbed held nothing but hot dust. Suddenly, a faint mist appeared before him, and the river spirit emerged, glowing faintly, her white gown shimmering even in the dry air. Her eyes held no anger, only deep sorrow. You thought you could own what was meant for all, she said softly, her voice like wind over empty land. But now you must drink from your own greed. At the edge of the village, Masego slowly walked toward the silent riverbed, his carved wooden staff tapping softly against the dry earth. His loose cream tunic and beaded necklace swayed with each step. The villagers followed him in silence, their earth-toned tunics and headscarves fluttering in the wind. They looked to him with hope, yet feared what they might find. When Masego reached the center, he placed his staff on the cracked ground and closed his eyes. He whispered words older than the village itself, calling on the river spirit with humility. The mist thickened once more, and the river spirit appeared before Masego. Her presence was both comforting and commanding, her gown flowing without wind. She turned her gaze to Beaker, who stood trembling. This river will flow again, but you will never drink from it unless you serve it, she declared. Beaker fell to his knees, tears cutting paths through the dust on his cheeks. I will serve, he whispered, though his voice cracked with exhaustion. Children laughed and splashed in the newly formed pools, their joy echoing through the valley. The villagers knelt, cupping their hands to drink the cool, life-giving water. With a gesture from the river spirit, water began to bubble from the cracks beneath Masego's staff. At first a trickle, then a stream, and finally a rushing flow surged down the riverbed. Children laughed and splashed in the newly formed pools, their joy echoing through the valley. The villagers knelt, cupping their hands to drink the cool, life-giving water. Bika was given a clay jar, not for his profit, but to carry water to the homes of the elderly. His steps were slow, but his eyes no longer burned with greed. The river spirit faded back into the mist, leaving behind the sound of rushing water and the promise that it would remain, if respected. Masego stood by the bank, his carved staff in hand, watching the flow with quiet satisfaction. He knew the river's life was now in the hands of the people. And in Lovu, the day the river stopped flowing became the day the village learned that greed can dry a river, but humility can make it flow again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button for more awesome stories. See you in the next one.